Okay, so let's begin. First thing we're going to do, this is the layout. I'll go through each of the layouts meanings in a second. Our basic thing is we want to get our model in. So that will be file. I'm going to go new. That will create a new file. By default, there's a bunch of templates in here. And if you don't understand what metallic roughness is, and if you don't understand what specular glossiness is, you should. So those will be the PBR links I sent you. There are two different methods of rendering. What we want is Unity 5. What does Unity 5 use? In your standard materials channel in Unity, what sliders show up? You've done 3 years of Unity at this stage. When you create a standard material, it has a metallic and it has a smoothness slider. So what channel are we using? Metallic, smoothness. Okay, which is essentially the opposite of roughness. Okay, it's like a glossiness. It's sometimes called glossiness as well. So smoothness and glossiness are basically the opposite of roughness. Everyone got it? So we're going to use Unity 5 because it's right there. We have a specifically set up for us Unity 5. And it says algorithmic because that's their interpretation of it. But because we're working for games and because we're working for Unity 5, great stuff, we'll do that. That means your job is much easier. It creates those channels for you. Remember we were doing the black and white for metal? What was that for? What was white for? Sorry? White was for metallic, black was for not metallic, gray was anywhere in between. And then we had the smoothness. And smoothness was controlled by transparency, right? So what this will do is we're going to be able to set materials onto it, and this program, Substance, will generate that for us. So anywhere that's metallic, it will set it to white automatically for us. And we'll see how that does it. Before we begin, there's a document resolution here. By default, set at 248. I have a pretty beefy computer, so I've set it at 248. You do not have to. You can set it at 128 if you want to. This is a weird, different workflow. You know the way in Photoshop, whenever you make a document, you can't really resize it because it gets blurry? This is not the case here. This is not how it works. What it works is they use pre-made materials. See those materials down here? I'll show you a bit more about each of them now. But these materials are pre-created, and they come in at like 4 or 8K resolution. So they're super high resolution. When you're working with it, you can work at a 128, which means on the viewport in the screen, it only uses a 128 version of the texture. So your computer will run faster. And then when you go to export, because it's pulling from the source file, and the source file is 8K or whatever, you can export up to 8K. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's pulling from that file, but it just shows you a crappier version of it while you're working, so you can work faster. And then when you actually export, it will still pull from that very, very high res file and give you a high res texture. So anyway, I'm going to work at 2048. Hopefully it won't destroy my computer, so you can still see. Normal map format, DirectX and OpenGL. That's more of a tech question, but it's something you all need to start understanding. What am I building for? Does anyone have any idea where you would build for OpenGL and where you would build for DirectX? Okay. Has anyone played the game and it starts at the start and it goes powered by DirectX, NVIDIA DirectX? All right. And usually what kind of games are they? Yeah, it's usually bigger, high resolution games, usually using like some heavy rendering pipeline. So like the high resolution rendering pipeline in Unity, for example, you'd probably be using DirectX. What it generally means with DirectX is like created by NVIDIA and stuff. So it generally means that it runs only on like high-end GPUs, generally. OpenGL is much more friendly. Like some mobile phones will run OpenGL, for example. So it depends on the project you're making and depends on your target. Okay, so I'm going to do OpenGL just to make it as wide as possible. Leave everything else alone. Don't be touching anything else. So we're not finished. We need to add, the mesh. So if we already have a normal map and baked maps, we don't have that. I can talk about that later. Do you remember at the start we talked about high polyfiles? Like you have a low polyfile and a high polyfile. So that tomahawk that I made, I could have imported into Mudbox or ZBrush, drawn loads of lovely little details on it, and then bake that. There's a process called baking that transfers the details of the high poly onto the low poly. We will go over that. But I'm not doing that here. So I don't have any of the normal maps. I don't have my own baked normal maps. I don't have any other baked maps. Okay, I just have the file, that tomahawk, that literally just that mesh file. And that's up here. File, select, and I'm just going to go look for that file. Cool. And just go, okay, job done, should import. Cool. Oh, I forgot I did a stupid. Okay. So happily, what it will do, it will give you both. Oh, sugar. A 3D as well as a 2D view. So this is your UV. You know, like literally where you unwrap stuff, that's where it shows up. And this is your 3D view. The default clicks are a little different, and if you work as an artist, you're gonna be used to this. You're gonna go to different programs. They all have their own different hotkeys. It's just the way it is. So this one is Alt and click to rotate. Actually, if you hit Alt, I think it should. There you go. Shows you all the controls. You can just scroll as well. So Alt and right click will zoom in and out, or you can just scroll. Alt and middle mouse will pan. Alt and left click rotates. So it's a little different, but you kind of have to get used to it. All good? Can everyone see the screen okay? Yeah? Okay. So by default, gives me the kind of Unity standard shader look, right? Just like straight up, just blank white. So what I can do, I have pre-made materials here. We will also go over making our own materials later. That will be using Substance Designer, which I also asked you to download. Okay, but for now today, we're just gonna mess with Substance Painter. That's all. So Substance Painter by default will come in with a bunch of stuff that's already just given to you. So I might like, what's this? This is new, Wood American Cherry. Ooh, let's put that in and see. You literally just grab that and drag that up to the layers here. Let go. And it essentially applies that material over the entire UV, okay, or the entire UV channel. And you can, if you zoom in, it looks pretty good, right? And that's a pre-made material; it's already pre-created for you. I'm working at 2048, so I can see it quite well. If you're working at a low resolution, of course, it won't look as nice. But when you export, it will be able to export up to whatever resolution. So anyway, that looks good and that's great, but obviously I don't want the entire thing to be American Cherry. So I probably want to like edit this a bit. You see the way on the handle here, the lines are going like that, this way, because my handle is set up, where is it? I think this is the handle. And my handle is set up sideways, and because the material has the grain going that way, it looks like it's going down on the handle. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah? So if I wanted to rotate it, I could. So if I click on the layer, and I go down here, there are settings or properties for that whole thing. So I can do rotation. I should be able to, there you go. And if I wanted to, I could rotate this so that the handle looks like the grain is sideways. All right. Yeah. Which I actually think looks weird, but if I wanted to, I could. And I can also change the scale of it. So like whether that texture, because usually those materials are tiling. So all you're doing when you're scaling it is just like it'll scale, but it'll add more of the same textures. It just keeps tiling on and off. So I can change how, like if I want this, I don't. But if I want that, it would just be repeated loads of times. If I zoom in, you can see that it's the same texture being repeated over and over. Okay. But I don't want that, of course. I just want like a normal 1 scale, and I probably don't want the rotation. Oh, you can offset as well. Sorry, let me just put it there. So if I'm like, oh, I like this, but I kind of wish it was a lighter color that's on the other side of it, you can just offset, and that will kind of like push it. Oh, that's the wrong offset. The other one. There we go. Cool. And then now I have the lighter color. Okay, because it's using, instead of using this part of the material, it's moving it and using the other part of the material. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. And because it's tiling, you can see like that's kind of where that material is, and it just keeps repeating over and over. Cool. All right. So down here are the different, and this is why you need to know what PBR is. Do I want the color channel? Yes. Do I want the height channel? Yes. Do I want the normal map channel? Or sorry, the roughness channel? Yes. And do I want the metallic? Yes. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I might want the texture of this wood. For some reason, I might want the texture of the wood, but I don't want the color. In which case, just turn off the color channel. Okay? And I still get that wood grain, but I have a different color. So I could slap a different wood color onto it. There's purple woods, and there's zebra woods, and there's padauk, and weird kind of woods. So I could use this kind of like detail, but a different color. So now here comes the second part, which is the blades. I assume I want some sort of steel, right? You can kind of hover over them, and it shows you. I'm probably going to use the rough steel. Let me just dump that up there. So unfortunately, what happens is it completely overlays everything below it. So it completely overrides all the stuff below it. It still shows you see the pattern of the wood still showing up, but it's overriding everything else. So that's not what I want. let's use that. I kind of want just these areas to not be wooden and just be the metal, and these areas to be wooden. I want them to be separated away. So the way I have to do that is I need to create a mask. And this, if anyone uses layer mask in Photoshop, it's almost exactly the same. So I'm going to use, let me just turn off the steel rough first. I'm going to use a black mask. What a black mask means, anything that's black doesn't show true. Okay? Anything that's white will. So that's not great because now it's hidden everything. I could also use a white mask. White mask, and it just shows everything true. But I need to edit that mask. So if I click on the mask, I go to this tool. This tool is a fill tool, and I can set it to fill either like mesh or polygons. So let me do polygons first. And because it's all white, it's filling everything true. So I want to fill in black. So if I click on that polygon, it's getting rid of that. Does that kind of make sense? I can also do it by mesh, so it just grabs that entire mesh. So I don't want any of these. Kind of don't want the handle to be wooden. You can also do it by UV. So you see this UV here, this little round strip, it exists by itself. So I can either click on here. Oh, I don't know what happened there. Or like on here as well. And it knows to reference the UV channel. So it won't like select outside of it. It'll select just that UV island. So that's the last one here. That's a UV island. So if I click this, it should select that entire UV island here. Okay. So that should be okay. That's grand. Everything's fine. And grand job. So then I can add the steel on top of that. And same thing. I'll probably drag it below. There you go. I've just dragged it below because that's easier. And you can see the wood parts are showing true because I like set them to show true. They're white on the mask, but everything else is blackened out. So the metal is showing true instead. Now I have a lovely metal texture. Okay, and then I can keep going. I can keep adding. I don't know. Do I have leather strips? Leather rough. Let's see what that looks like. Leather sofa. Japanese. Nope. Leather bag. Let's try leather bag. See if I can get that on the handle. Again, add a black mask, and I will just this area, sure, make that one show. Oh, you can click here as well. They both correspond, so you can click either. And go back here. Cool. So it's got leather there, and everything else is metallic. Cool. All right. Well, I'll let you mess with that for a while. There's other stuff, obviously, that I can show you, but I'll let you play around with that for a sec. Yeah. That's okay. Around looks alright. So I was saying last week as well, the other way you have to handle sideways to try and fit as well. I would suggest trying to keep it straight because of exactly this. If I stop the material, it needs to always be straight. He doesn't have to. You can rotate the material to fit. It's just a little bit extra work. That's all. It's usually seen as needed. You literally just export the MDX you have. That's it, and then import it. See that? Oh, you said you separate them as sections instead of one long strip around. Uh-huh. Yeah, exactly. But there are sections instead of one. Okay, so you have the seam go correct. So you can unwrap it again. Because your seam is still correct, so to select it. Oh, shit, now you're after unwrapping this one. Yeah, and it automatically just undo that, because it automatically creates a seam around where you unwrap. Just quite annoying. It still has a seam there, so you'll need to edit seams to click on that one. Yeah, Alt and select that area. That's select. Select the yeah, so if they want to straighten up, you can just go like that and then straight. Cool. So as long as you have the seams in the right place, you can also do the stuff. Right, so you may be running into a point where you're starting to basically kind of go, oh no, there's this material that I'd love to have, but it doesn't exist in that shelf. You can get materials three different ways. One, we can make it. We'll go over that. Two, we can go to these different places. So source is one that is paid. You have to pay to get it. And if you pay for substance, you get, I think, 30 free a month. But it often always has free assets. So if you click on free, for example, there's a bunch of free ones, and these change all the time. So you can just keep downloading them whenever they show up. So that's one. None of these work for me right now, but they're very cool. I may get them later. Huh? This one? What about it? Okay, so they use the blanket to show you that it's meant to be for cloth, but you would have to have that would be like a cloth, like a plain, and you add a cloth modifier to it, which we haven't done yet. Well, I will, sure. Okay, so instead of that, you can also go to Substance Share, and this is completely free. People make their own kind of like designs or whatever, their own materials, and upload them here. They have their own brushes and materials and everything. So let's search for, I need a rope texture. So I'm going to search for rope. Hopefully there should be, there we go, tons of them. Of course, they're not going to be as good as the one you actually pay for, because this one's made by professionals. So it just depends. You kind of need to be a bit more, oh, that one looks okay. Or this one. You kind of need to be a bit more picky about which one you get, but you usually can get some good stuff. So this is Smart Materials. That should be okay. Yeah, that'll work. So I'll download that. You'll need to download with your email, which I can't remember. Okay, cool. Download it somewhere. I have a folder for all my stuff. Yes. Unzip it. Where'd it go? There. And it comes in as this, which you hopefully should just be able to drag here, and it'll ask you what it is. Does anyone remember what it was? Oh, this one knows. It says Smart Materials, so it's grand. It knows. The thing that's important is you import your resources either to current session, that means only right now, and it'll delete after. The project, which means this file, or the shelf. And the shelf is this file over here. And the shelf means that it's there permanently for every other project I open. I'll always see rope material. You may not want that, because you may want a super weird material just for this one project. I don't actually want it sitting there all the time, in which case you just import to the project or to the session. But I'll do to the shelf. It should show up under Smart Materials. And rope should be there. There we go. There it is there. And I, like normal, just drag it in. A smart material is slightly different to a normal material. A smart material usually comes in a folder like this, and a smart material is usually made of a bunch of different layers of materials. Okay, that's why they're called smart materials. They're a bit more in depth and a bit more complicated, but don't be too stressed about them. So it just came like that, and I can just add the same black mask, and I'll make it only show up on the rope parts. Job done. Now only show, well, I need to edit the rotation of it. Let's add it to fabric. You okay? Uh, yes. So, first of all, you probably want to put them all back together. So you can add them over and while you're on top of the other. Should be anything when you're done. Unselected and it's file export selected. Make sure it's export to FBX. Okay. Anyone else need a hand or anything? Now's probably a good time to Control S and save. Yeah. Say again? Oh. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Each because you have 1.0. So if you have a dot, it's things in exception. The other thing is you probably want to while you do this, not together. Before. No, like you know when you turn up the building, but like everything's separated. You probably want to add another other body and put them all back together. So you don't have to. You probably should. Say it. Just say it. Okay. This is alright. So just before I might take a break at 10 so we can kind of stretch our legs and stuff. Just before we do that, I just want to show you one last thing, which is, let me put this really dumb material, this aluminium thing over everything, right? And I'll do a black mask. And let's say I want this to show up in only some places, but I mean, I can obviously use this, but I want to do it like so it shows up in patterns. So I can go to where it says alphas, and I can use this alpha. If I select a brush, I can use any of these alphas and I can add my own alphas. All these alphas they're straight up just black and white images. So whatever is white will show true and whatever is black will block. So let's say I want to add that. Just put that here. Go. Boop. Oh, sorry. The color should be white because I'm painting on the mask. So I have that material. I've made a black mask and I'm painting white on it. Boop, and it shows true. Okay, so this is very good for like decals or like extra little tiny details and stuff. So like if I added this, I could do a little Celtic cross here. Why not? And it shows up on all the other sides. The other thing that can be useful for you, because they share the same material. In that case, they shared the same material. The same texture, because the two blades are on top of each other, as you can see here. So I just needed to do one side. On the others, for example, like here, if I wanted this to go on the handle, that's grand. But if I wanted to go on the other side, exactly the same place, I can go and eyeball it. But I can kind of be a bit more accurate than that. I can turn on this, which is the symmetry. And you can edit where its symmetry is going to go. So let's do mirror Y, mirror X, mirror Z. Ugh, it's a little bit offset. Boop. And now it should go on both sides. I didn't do that well. It's a little offset. It's still good. Yeah, it's not the worst. And I should be able to also edit where it offsets. So you see the way it's a bit off? Should be able to move that a little bit. There we go. 0.02 maybe? There we go. So it's exactly down the middle now. And now if I stamp, it should stamp on the other side exactly. Yay! Cool. Alright, so that will be symmetry and alpha stamps. It comes with a bunch of alphas, but you can just import your own, just drag it in and tell Substance that whatever you're dragging is an alpha. So as long as it's black and white, it works completely fine. Any of your own images works completely fine. And you can download tons of alphas online. There's loads of them available. And any of these will work. So like if I'm halfway through, I want to go to this one. Just literally click on it, and I have a really dumb sakura flower alpha. Okay. Say what? Oh, because the material. Let me just disable this mask. The material I'm using is like that. Okay, so I sorry about that. I should probably use just a simpler gold material, like brass pure. There we go. Black mask that, and now when I do that, there you go. Okay. All right. Another thing you may want to do. Can I do that here? Yeah, I should be able to. So you see it's got color, metal, height, rough. If I click on height, hopefully, yes, happy days. I can change this with this slider. So you see the way it looks like it's just like, it looks like someone took gold leaf and just pasted it on. I may want to look like it's embossed or pushed in. And I can do that with the height channel and just raise that up. And now that looks like it's, you know, someone actually kind of like stamped it on or something. Or if I pull it the other way, and now it looks like it's been carved in instead. So that will be, because by default it didn't have a height channel, or even if it does have a height channel, on a normal material, you're able to edit all that stuff. So now whenever I stamp using this material, it will always look like it's been embossed. If we go back to the brush and use a alpha, let's use, I don't know, with these yolks. These yolks, there we go. It should look like it's been embossed up. Let's do it here. Yeah, oh, sugar. Let's do it here. Yeah, so it's embossed up. Okie dokes. Cool program, no? So sorry, actually one last little thing as well before we go for break. You can as well paint. This is a brush and it is pressure sensitive if you have a tablet, so you can just paint as well your own exact kind of like areas. So for example, I might want to do like a little edging. You can hold shift as well and it just keeps making straight lines from where you last clicked. So if I want to have like a little, it's a little bit, and boom, we have like a nice little gold.